We are the Church of the Larger Fellowship, a Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundaries. We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love. The COVID-19 pandemic has irrevocably shaped how connections are formed in congregations across the United States and the world. The Church of the Larger Fellowship is committed to being a resource within Unitarian Universalism and beyond. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine Quest to our online community hub and our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community, even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison. The CLF supports the ministries of those who hold target identities: Blue, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism; Trust, Transgender Religious UU Professionals Together; and Drum, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, just to name a few. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed, even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The View. The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message.
Welcome, 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 beloveds, to this week's episode of The View, Voices of Unitarian Universalism. My name is Dante Hilliard, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as a Learning Fellow for Worship at the Church of the Larger Fellowship. And I am a pleasantly plump mocha chocolate Black man with reddish-brown shoulder-length hair, black framed glasses, and I'm wearing a black headband because my hair is doing a thing. I am here in the land of the Piscataway people, also known as Baltimore, Maryland, USA. DC, how are you today? What's going on?
Good. Hey, Dante, good afternoon, I guess. Yeah, I am Reverend DC Fortune. I am coming to you from the banks of the Susquehanna River in central Pennsylvania, the ancestral home of the Susquehannock people. My pronouns are he, him. I am a fat-ish, white, balding trans man with glasses. And I don't know. It's rainy and crappy here, and I don't like it. And I'm gonna have a pout about it for a while, I think. But you know, it'll be as effective as anything else I do about the weather. But that's okay. Aisha, how are you doing today?
I'm Aisha Hauser, and I'm in Seattle, Washington, land of the Coast Salish people. I am a brown woman with wild curly hair that is black, most of it. A lot of it's getting grayer by the day. I'm wearing glasses and a keffiyeh, a symbol of the freedom of the Palestinian people, free Palestine. How am I? I'm sad. Yes, thank you, Alison. We are excited about our guest today. I'm sad. One of our leaders, Amanda Thomas, one of the most amazing musicians in our movement, passed away a couple days ago and yesterday. I will say, for all the folks poo-poo social media, what felt as sad as I was, getting to see all the tributes to her and all the pictures. And what was interesting is a lot of group pictures I was in with her. She used to call me the Pied Piper. She was the Pied Piper. Like wherever we were, there was a group gathered around and wanted to be around Amanda. So I am holding her in my heart. And we have Reverend Alison Farnum and Keith Talley with us today. Alison, I did want you to jump in here because you are affiliated with the congregation where Amanda served.
Yes, and I'm affiliated with Second Unitarian Church of Chicago, and Amanda served there in a capacity offering her gifts of music, and just especially thinking about all the congregations that she has touched so many in so many different ways through her leadership, whether they were workshops or coming in and offering the gift of her music and that generous spirit. So had a lot of folks were on my heart yesterday, and the cascade of love and support, and especially with also her wife Heather, who Heather and I served together when I was young at Second Unitarian, at serving as a youth advisor. Heather and I both were serving as youth advisors in leadership capacity in the Central Midwest District.
Oh, thank you, Keith. I don't know. I don't want to leave you out. I don't know if you knew Amanda, and she has left. Unitarian Universalism is better because she was one of our leaders and in it. So, thank you for that. Dante, do you want to introduce our topic?
Let's have Keith talk about it. Let's have Keith introduce himself.
Oh, yes. Well, both Keith and Alison, yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
But Keith's muted, dear.
Keith, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I forget DC access to mute us. All right, so threw him under the bus. My name is Keith Talley. I am employed with Unitarian Universalists as a prison ministry of Illinois, as a prisoner solidarity specialist. I am socially defined as African American. I go by the pronouns he, him. I am residing in the far south side of Chicago, which is what I just looked up, is part of the Potawatomi people, who were part of the Council of Three Fires. Anyway, this is my first time being on a platform like this, and so I'm looking to have some fun and inform some people.
Thank you. I think that is us in a nutshell. We have fun. We inform people in salty language sometimes. Alison, would you like to give let us know your position? Because today our topic is prison ministry.
Yeah, I get to work with Keith. I'm Reverend Alison Farnum. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm affiliated with Second Unitarian Church of Chicago as a community minister. And I serve as the director and minister of the Unitarian Universalist Prison Ministries of Illinois. And I live in Evanston, Illinois, which is the ancestral land and unceded land of the Council of Three Fires. So, and I get to work with Keith. So I'm very lucky. And lots of amazing, amazing volunteers. Really incredible people.
I'd love to know the genesis of the position you're in. I knew there were some congregations have their own thing. The CLF obviously has a prison ministry, but I'd love to know the genesis of what you all are doing in Illinois.
So I can speak to the beginnings of this organization, where before my time, I got to come in January of 2020. And before that, my predecessor was the Reverend Karen Mooney. And before that, it was a group of volunteers, a very robust group of volunteers, sort of this, you know, how the beautiful kismet and synchronicity happens, where there were some people who had read The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander around 2016-ish and got really angry and were tired of sitting around reading books and feeling really hopeless about the world, right? I mean, I've been in that book study, that's for sure. And so it was like, what can we do? And then making connections with people like a member of the Unitarian Church of Evanston, who had for years been an attorney working on lifting up the voices and the dignity of criminalized survivors of gender-based violence. And people who came up through the Young Religious Unitarian Universalist movement, who were really exploring prison reform, but then moving more towards prison and abolition. So this sort of delicious gumbo began to come together in one pot. And so as a result, it began really with this hope of having a presence inside. So prisons are punitive. They don't correct, they don't heal, they don't restore, they punish, they hurt, they're torturous places. And so the genesis was really, how can we bring Unitarian Universalism inside in any way that we can? And the Illinois Department of Corrections, as most prison systems, are mistrustful and worried about, you know, any kind of outside stuff coming in. And so it took some time for an incredible amount of persistence from my colleague, Reverend Karen Mooney, a retired colleague, Reverend Marcia Curtis, who really worked hard to gain access so that we could bring a different kind of presence inside. So the genesis began there, and then it has developed since then as volunteers got more involved and more in relationship, and beginning a pen pal program that is completely powered by the Worthy Now Ministries of the Church of the Larger Fellowship. It's really evolved into quite a few robust ministries for this very small organization that we've got going here.
And Keith, how did you get involved? We can't hear you again. Am I doing something? I don't think so.
No, it's me. It's me.
Okay.
It's me. I have a lot of noise in the office, and so I just had to be mindful that when I speak to cut the mic on. Actually, it started with the CLF. I was in prison serving. I served 17 years, and I was serving as the resident imam for the Al-Islamic community. Wow. And I had an improbable conversation with a gay white Buddhist. Now, if you know prison is sexist. Prison is religiously conservative, and it is incredibly homophobic. So this conversation that we struck up was highly improbable. And so through that conversation, he introduced me to the UU world. I immediately shelved it when I saw the language of churches and ministers and things of that nature, reverends, and categorized it in the Christian category. And he followed up and asked that I read it, and I hadn't yet. And so I gave it a read, and I saw these individuals who I could not categorize having this robust, critical, and brave conversation about white supremacy at the time. They were really doing a deep dive on white supremacies and white supremacy and its institutional tentacles, and so and it really intrigued me, and so I signed up for the pen pal program. I was given a couple pen pals from the East Coast. It was kind of cumbersome having to communicate through CLF. And at that time, they were forming UUPMI, and I was funneled to UUPMI, and that's how I wound up in the Prison Ministry of Illinois program.
So wow, thank you. And how long ago was this? I'm curious.
Oh, well, this is approximately well, I've been home about a year, so over a little over a year. So this is about 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about 3 years. Yeah, yeah. Matter of fact, no, I take that back. Time flies. So it was a little longer. It's about 4 or 5 because it was during the Trump's first presidency,
Well, of
which
course
which
you can't remember because none of us
which
can
which which
remember
really
times.
allowed me to bond with my pen pals. That's actually what we bonded over.
Mm.
Yeah, Trump outrage. Yeah.
Aisha, I was just thinking, part of our roundup, we didn't talk about the good news around the CSAI.
Yes, the Congregational Study Action Item. So, the Unitarian Universalists gather every year at our General Assembly. It is quite an exciting event. And this year we will be in Baltimore, and it is also where we do the association business. And one of the things I do love about Unitarian Universalism and Universalists is that we want to bear witness and address the inequities in our society, and how can we be better. So this year we are, and what happens with the CSAI is people propose, or entities propose, topics to study for 3 years. So the UCLF is proposing that we study abolition, faith formation, as ways to think about, what can society that isn't punitive, to your point, Alison, because that's all prisons are. It is, in addition to being an extension of slavery, it is not about rehabilitation or making society better. It is simply a continuation of violent extractive capitalism. For-profit prisons, anyone? How gruesome is that? So our hope is, and we will, and the other two, one is on fat liberation and the other one on homelessness and DEI. And these are all important topics to study. I'm not at all going to diss the other two. I think that I'm am passionate about being abolition is, we got an email yesterday with somebody who said, you need to use different words. Well, here's the thing. People didn't like the words anti-racism or white supremacy culture, or words are not the problem. Words are not the problem. So let's be clear, because if please and thank you brought liberation, we would have fucking said them already. So what we're doing,
Well, my ancestors had to say
it. I mean, right, because exactly, it is a form of control. So what we're inviting you to do, I said this last week, is one of my pet peeves a little bit that makes me twitch, is when people say, "But we need prisons." And I said, first, let's take a breath. Let's take a breath. If we vote to study, if this passes in June, because we're going to put it into the universe that this is going to pass in June, it doesn't mean prisons are closing in July. Take it down a notch, take it down all the notches. Like, be a little humble, can we? Second, what we're saying is it's an invitation to experience and expand our imaginations to what does a world that doesn't center punishment look and feel like. That's what we're talking about. One element is not caging people, abso-fucking-lutely. The bigger, more important, the faithful theological element, if we believe, is what does that look like if we planned accordingly? Because when people say, let's fucking separate children, let's cage children, let's send people overseas to cage them. Oh yeah, let's do that. But when we say, actually, let's have universal basic income, let's have universal health care, let's have guaranteed housing. Oh, that's complicated. Why is that complicated? Okay, that's my...
Well, and the other part of this, I would say, Asia, as sort of one of the baby you use around here. Number one, I appreciate that I'm part of a faith that understands itself as a learning community, that actually taking the time to be thoughtful, contemplative, reflecting on issues in a meaningful way, right? 3 years of study is nothing, no matter which CSAI passes, right? 3 years of intensive study is nothing to sneeze at for an institutional commitment, number one. And we don't mean studying that we're going to form this little baby committee over here that's going to do some stuff on the side. Like, we as a whole, or, you know, throughout, right? Individual congregations, individual people, small group ministries, all these different versions of contemplating this topic. But I also love the fact that we're talking about abolition as faith formation, right? So even if you like, I don't know about the abolition part, well, we all should be engaged in deep forms of faith formation. And what might we learn about ourselves, our value or ethical core, or our faith center, depending on, you know, which kind of you are, right? To think about how do I understand my core in relationship to abolition, right? And that is about lived theology, lived values, right? Not just we got a pretty graphic of shared values, but what can those shared values look like in our real world? So that's the thing that excites me.
I'm excited about the idea of learning and being in conversation with abolition, because in some of the circles I get to run around in, that it's always a conversation, even with people who are actively working in decarceration and dismantling prisons and policing. There's always a tension. And I think one of the things that I think the best of abolitionist visioning offers is this invitation into both and, right? So like, I have to work with folks who are, in order to have a presence inside at Cook County Jail, for example, in Chicago, Illinois. I need to interface with folks who are being paid by the systems that I would like to eventually be a part of dismantling. And they are wonderful people. So there's a both and in that. And from a framework of restorative justice, which is like this, like in circle, there's that opportunity to really sit and listen with one another. And I guess I feel like there are so many opportunities for learning in congregations. And also, I think the last thing I would just say about it for the CSAI, the Congregational Study Action Issue, is the opportunity that congregations have to think about their neighbors who have been invisibilized because they have been criminalized and basically warehoused in cages.
Reverend Alison and Keith, feel free to jump in on this. I consider Chicago my home. I'm a native Illinoisan, and I was going to ask you about Cook County because I know a lot of people who have experienced harm. Sometimes feel better knowing people are away, right? Like, and we have to deal with that. We're already saying, well, these people have been convicted, right? Can you talk about what actually happens to people who are in Cook County Jail? Because I think people think, well, these are people who are paying for their crime, but that's not my understanding of how Cook County Jail operates. Would either of you like to talk to that?
Well, since I was a denizen of Cook County Jail multiple times, I can speak to that. The perception that many people in the public have is that a person is doing time and that they are automatically guilty. All right, is deserving, right? And the whole concept of pretrial confinement is that you are present a harm or potential harm to society or threat to society, and you're being detained while your case is adjudicated. We've made enormous strides in Cook County with the passing of the Pretrial Fairness Act, which we have eliminated cash money bail. So, which has revealed some issues with the state's attorney and the public defender's office, because the institution protects itself, its power, and so when you dismantle one thing, it morphs into something else. And so we're kind of confronting that on another end. But what happens when a person is confined? Um, they lose their job. They're detached from their family. They have a more difficult they have more difficult chance or time in actually fighting their case. So someone has a better outcome in just defending themselves if they are free, as opposed to being confined. It's completely dehumanizing, and it's so bad that um, most people take a plea just to get out of there, and so they can go to a better place, Illinois Department of Corrections, just to escape the county and all its dehumanizing you know impact. So yeah, that's pretty much what happens in Cook County.
Do we know, or do you all have a sense of like the average time that a person can spend in pretrial confinement in Cook County before ever getting to trial?
Well, that's a difficult one. When you say average, there are a lot of factors that go into that. However, in the law, you can ask for a speedy trial, which forces them to have the trial within 120 days.
Okay.
If everyone asks for a speedy trial, the system would implode because they don't have the infrastructure to try every case in 120 days. But of course, you can't get a buy-in on that, right? Because there's some people that don't want to really go to trial; they want to plea. So, um, um, uh, and so what they do is they give these lengthy continuances. You may get a continuance for 90 days. And when you do go to court, you're only in there for a couple seconds to get another continuance. All right. And so the public defender's office is stretched. They don't send out investigators to actually help you fight your case. It's just horrible on all fronts. But you can be in there for years. You can be in there for years before you even, and some people are there for years and are found not guilty with no compensation, no sorry, and it's, so yeah.
Thank you, Keith, for speaking to that, because I know that a lot of folk don't understand the different ways this carceral container operates, right? That it's not all the same.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
I will also say we have had, because of the passage of the Pretrial Fairness Act in Illinois, which ended money bond or cash bail, it also is part of a longer trajectory in looking at creating a more robust public defense system. Because think of it, like, of all the things that go, the resources that go towards basically criminalizing someone and proving their guilt, but then you have this public defender, and they're so massively underfunded, and Illinois is actually kind of behind the curve in that. So, I could get in majorly in the weeds about all this stuff, but I do want to say that it has gotten better, but the continuances issue is a problem. And so, we recruit volunteers to be court watchers to see how this is getting implemented in all of the counties in Illinois, not just around Chicago. And the jail ministry, when I have the opportunity to go in, I remember there being a time where, hearing from the women that I was sitting in circle with, how grateful they were for this time, for this opportunity to finally have some space to think about how they want to lead themselves. And to me, it made my blood boil, that in order for a person to feel like they have space to think about how they want to live their lives and reflect, requires them being caged. Something is not. It's a true indictment of our society and how upside down it is. And when we look at abolition, one thing that I hope congregations can think about if they get the opportunity to study this issue is the ways that they're already contributing towards the well-being of humanity and humanizing and preventing what could become someone being confined and criminalized. So we have a training that we just wrapped up called Confronting Criminalization that really looks at the tentacles and the how the prison industrial complex is connected and all the ways that that it's woven into dominant culture and also ways that it can be confronted and disrupted. So yeah, again, those are all resources that we might be able to share.
We have a comment. DC, we haven't heard from you. Do you want to read Nicole's comment that I think is important?
Sure. Nicole writes that she says, I think the other two CSAI topics are accepted issues and there is work being done outside Unitarian Universalism, but abolition is something that will not move unless a group of people, maybe you use, commit to it.
I also want to, because I don't want to erase the people who are doing abolition work, including Adrienne Marie Brown, and here in Seattle, Ijeoma Oluo, who is a friend of mine. I'm name dropping. I was just with her last week, and she's bringing groups of people together in community, and that was what we talked about. We had brunch. We talked about what does a world that is an abolitionist world that has abolished caging people. To both of your points, one of the things that's also, I think, a fundamental misunderstanding, the fallacy that everyone who has been caged and is in either prison or jail is guilty, and the fallacy that everyone who does something egregious and causes harm ends up in one of those. So there's just a white wealthy people get away with murder, sexual assault, drug dealing. The list goes on and on. Poor people of color,
LGBT
immigrants
folk
are guilty. LGBTQ folk are guilty before just suspicion, and they can be caught up in nets that are very intentional, and Keith, to your point, are left to wait. And we're saying 90 days, that's 3 months. 120 days is 4 months. So that's how, and then they go in for a few seconds, and then there's a continuance. That's another form. That's how people end up. So I think that information is lost for folks, or isn't there in terms of their understanding and it is true. This was mentioned earlier, that because we have such a deeply broken society and a society that's not centered care, there is violence, there is sexual assault. We have a deeply misogynistic society, a deeply homophobic, transphobic, racist, anti-Black. So we have a society, the United States, that does not center humanity and is so quick to dehumanize others. And that's when we say, let us enter into understanding the world in which we exist and know that we could change it. I have a friend, an activist friend, a Black woman, who said to me, I don't use the term restorative justice, because for me as a Black woman, what are we restoring it to? She uses the term transformative justice. And so that was an aha moment for me. To be able to lean into that which makes us uncomfortable is why we're UUs. I think we don't promise heaven or hell. We don't know, but we do know we're here. Keith, I grew up Muslim, so when you said you were an imam, I was like, oh, and then I found my way to Unitarian Universalism. So yeah, I'm so glad that I'm gonna guess you read Quest and Worthy now when you were dialoguing. Is that you were reading both of those publications?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And I did the I don't mean to interrupt you, but I did
No,
the
please.
also did the study guides. And
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and actually that is really had a personal transformative impact, because it framed my tradition uh, in a which has a propensity to be more conservative, to say the least. But it framed it in a more uh, I don't like to use the word liberal, but it framed it in a more inclusive, accepting, and welcoming framework, and allowed me to see some things that were already there within my tradition. It's just that I was reading information that was focusing on me on the other elements. And
Mm.
so having been exposed to that, and that's so important, being exposed to that material had a transformation in my own walk in tradition. I mean, spiritual walk. Yeah.
So Keith, what has been your experience now being involved in the as a working with the prison ministry on this side? What is that
Okay.
experience been like for
Well,
you?
what that looks like is that I get to travel with Reverend Allison to various Unitarian churches throughout the state, and we inform them about the pen pal program, but more largely we inform them about the prison industrial complex. And so uh, having an opportunity to be in those spaces, which are so welcoming, um, and yeah, just share that information to help. Our mission is to help you use, transform institutions. You know what I mean? And so we want to empower them with that information, so they can, mount a good, informed, and committed effort to do that.
Whew. And so, how are you all funded? Because we are constantly on the needing to be funded train. And the thing that we found with the CLF is we're in this kind of middle. So places that grants that will fund religious institutions in prisons are usually conservative Christian or conservative other groups. Secular organizations who would want to support don't fund religious organizations, and we're like, but we're not those kinds of I mean, so it's this. So I'm curious about how you all do it, if you don't mind sharing that.
Well, I love talking about money, because I think that it's a way that we can share our energy with one another in the system that we're in now. The system can change,
That's right.
and it could be something different someday. I hope it is, actually. But I think we have folks who give individually, who are involved with the ministries, and then we also have folks who do a share the plate. And so in the share the plate, we just invite folks to, we make a concerted effort to send out info to area congregations in Illinois about the work that we're doing. And some folks decide to do a share the plate. We also are so grateful to receive support from the UU Fund for Social Responsibility. And that has helped fund various, push initiatives that we've worked on in growing the organization. And that's what we do. We do a Faithify campaign once a year. And if any of you have done a Faithify campaign, you know that it's a great opportunity to for folks to learn more about what we're up to, and potentially to identify new donors. And I'm continually amazed at the generosity of folks, and the support that they give. We do an annual fund campaign for individuals. So yeah, it's really one of the things I have learned is that folks want to give to organizations that are meeting needs. not that have needs. And I do want to say that our organization actually has made a commitment to give to CLF every year. I mean, it's not a ton of money, but it's a way of showing our connection and how deeply grateful we are to the Church of the Larger Fellowship. And I just want to say that because we live in a world where people who are locked up are often invisibilized to those especially who are not impacted and not touched and who are in that realm of innocence, let's just say, that we have the Church of the Larger Fellowship who's over half of your membership now are people who are incarcerated who likely do not have the means that people in the free world have to give.
That's right.
And so we have a very big church, and half of the membership are from an incredibly marginalized group, and it's underfunded. And we also have congregations who probably are neighbors to prisons, where there are, in those prisons, people who are caged, who are members of the Church of the Larger Fellowship.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm so grateful. And let that be an invitation to congregations to support the CLF, to connect and see who's nearby, or whatever it is. Let's keep weaving that web, the love web,
The
So,
love
thanks,
web.
y'all.
Yes. Thank you. You're going to be at GA, right? I hope.
Maybe for a day.
Oh, okay. Because I would love to see you in person. I don't know that we've met in person.
Yes, we have at Institute.
Oh, yes. I do.
Yes. Do you remember?
Yes.
You loved on me during a worship service. It was.
Oh, that's Aisha. Yeah.
It was really, yeah.
That's right. Institute was a couple years ago, in my defense. So thank you.
It was a long time ago.
It feels like a long time ago. But thank you. I hope I get to love on you in person. I think thank you for that, because part of what we do need to say, feel the need to say, is our director of prison ministry, Sir LeBert, we had to let go. We had to, because we are underfunded. So if anyone listening to this can write us a $500,000 to $1 million check, please do so. I'm putting it out I'm doing the white girl manifesting thing. If that's real, bring it. Bring the 500,000 immediate by July, $1 million I'll give you till December. Like, we need it. So please do that. We are doing important work where everyone is affirmed in the fullness of who they are. And I think of this faith that is, it makes me cry. It's like one of the ills that we have in humanity right now, even though there's over almost 8 billion of us, 7 billion, is how quickly we dehumanize each other. And the work of humanization is unnecessarily hard. Why is that the uphill battle? It should be hard to dehumanize people.
Well, Aisha, one, I'm going to push back on you and insist that we cannot dehumanize people. We can the structures encourage people to dehumanize themselves.
Thank you.
The reason I'm still here is because my ancestors refused to be dehumanized.
Amen.
And they watched another group of humans severely dehumanize themselves in order to keep power and control over us.
Say that. Say that again.
These structures, again, there's a reason that the slave ship, high-rise projects, and prisons look the same by design, right? It's designed to encourage you to dehumanize yourself.
And when we refuse, when we refuse,
Yeah.
right? And that's what's happening in Palestine. There is this concerted effort for the last over 75 years since the Nakba to attempt to dehumanize an entire group of people, the Palestinians.
Right. Again, you look at any colonization effort, this is why we attack your language, we attack your character, we create propaganda about whatever community we want to destroy, right? It's not just military stuff. It is using language and symbols and rituals to get you to dehumanize, for you to socialize you into a space where you understand yourself as being dehumanized.
Whew. Yeah, thank you for that. You're absolutely right.
You know,
Some of the most human people we know may be locked in one of these carceral camps, right? Because again, it's a struggle to hold on to your humanity, to not understand yourself as being dehumanized, because it's designed to make you feel less human, right? Why would we have to design things to make people feel less human if they were already less human?
Oh, that's right. The intentionality around it. And that, like, when I started, so I wasn't born a prison abolitionist kind of person, right? And honestly, like, this was not on my radar. I've been involved in social justice movements, but I come from a family where we were not impacted, or the stories have not been told, right? It's like under the surface. And when I begin to think about it, it's like, oh, and that just shows how oppressive systems work. And so when I began trying to do a very quick study, as all of a sudden, like, I need to learn everything I can in a very short amount of time. What really helped me get a handle on the systems, of seeing the systems, was Robin D.G. Kelly's work on racial capitalism, and understanding that capitalism is inherently racist, and it has everything to do with the prison industrial complex. And one thing I have always known, I don't know how, just in my blood and bones, is that the systems are not broken. They are working. They are well-oiled machines. And it's our grit and whatever we can that has to disrupt these systems, and also be in the business of being a part of the love web, the systems that are life-giving and that contribute to the flourishing of all humans and beings, and our Madre Tierra, our planet,
Absolutely. I also think about, I'm a part of the CLF where more than half our members are incarcerated, where they get to vote as full members, where we are moving worship to a podcast format so that some incarcerated members have access to worship. We incorporate writings and images from our incarcerated members into worship. Our CSAI t-shirt design is from one of our incarcerated members, and funds that are being raised are going to go on that person's books. So, like, I know that we are not perfect as Unitarian Universalists, but I really believe that we really try to walk our walk, and I appreciate that. And I'm so, as folks who are working with our incarcerated members and folks all the time, I wonder if you wanted to say some words about the kind of feedback you're hearing from the members about the things that are available to them or not available to them around faith, around reflection, around the kind of opportunities that we try to create for our incarcerated members.
Before we go there, could we read Nicole's comment? I have it on the screen.
That.
You want to do that?
I'll do that.
Go ahead.
Nicole says she's trying on some language. So, dehumanization is a fallacy, a socially constructed strategy used to convince others that it can be applied to gain and consolidate power.
Mm.
So I'm going to
Well
ask, can you clarify that just a tiny bit? My orange cat brain is having trouble with that one this morning.
Dante?
What I experienced, Nicole's trying to sort of interpret what I'm saying, that okay, so I'm going to do the example. So part of the stereotype of African descendant people and why you enslaved us was because we were animals. We were less human. Like, we weren't smart. We were animals. Chattel slavery, literally animals. Okay, well then, if we're animals, why didn't you put the tit of your cow in your baby's mouth? Why was it my great grandmother's tit? Right? Why were my ancestors cooking for you and rearing your children and creating music and art for you and bringing their knowledge of agriculture to the land, and particularly iron smithing, right? Blacksmithing is a skill that my ancestors brought here. So if we were so unhuman, why were you so selective about who you brought? Right? So the legal dehumanization is a strategy. It's what Judith Butler would call a performative. It is a stylized repetition of acts that is designed to make us think this state is natural, but it is not. Social construction, I think, is the language we most often use. The concept of dehumanization is really around smoke and mirror. I'm trying to convince you of something that I know is not true. But if I can convince you that it is true, then my work is done.
Thank you for that, Dante.
Yes.
And
we see it now in spades with the dialogue around immigrants and immigration. There is a concerted effort.
And if I may make this connection with abolition. While I was confined, we participated in a abolition praxis in which we read Mariam Kaba's book, Where Do We Go From Here, with our pen pal, outside pen pal member, and we would have a internal conversation, and then they will report to UPMI, some of the insights. But what it did was expose me to abolition, the ideas, the framework, and I thought it was absurd, laughable. I didn't have the creativity of imagination to be able to just grasp an idea that I can live in a society where these instruments of oppression and domination weren't present and needed. Anyway, so I wondered if the other people who I live with had the same opinion, although they weren't exposed to abolition. And so I did a sample poll among the small sample, maybe 25 people, individuals who are kind of conscious and who I kind of engage with. And they too were of the same opinion. They could not grasp the idea. What do you mean a world without prisons? You know what I mean? And so and I understand that now to be the effects of trauma, but again, linking it to the idea of, if you can get the people to accept dehumanization conditions as normal and acceptable, then they will embrace it. Matter of fact, they will protect it. You know what I mean? And so
that's right.
And so I was just making that connective tissue because you brought up that.
Yes, thank you, Keith. That is yes. What we talk about in trafficking, we talk about grooming. This grooming doesn't just happen around sexual trafficking and sexual abuse. The system grooms us in so many ways, right? Trisha Hersey talks about capitalist grind culture. It's just totally designed to convince us to behave like humans. I mean, to behave like machines instead of humans, to focus on efficiency and productivity to the exclusion of our wellness, our joy, our thriving. Right? So yeah, the system grooms us from the time we show up. Even in utero, the system is grooming us to be certain things, to accept certain things. And so I'm deeply appreciative for both this faith tradition and for those of you who are doing this work every day, because it's important work.
Mm.
Well, I feel like this is like maybe part one of another view time, because, it's so affirming to keep talking and lifting up the reminder of humanizing one another to one another, and not just in these individual ways, but in larger of systematizing that.
Yeah.
Right. So DC, you'd mentioned on the chat about systems exist to just keep going, and but there can be like the upward spiral of health, and wholeness, happiness, goodness, peace, joy, all these things that we can create the environments for the flourishing. And that's what transformative justice is about.
Mm-hmm.
It looks to how do we create conditions so that violence would not be perpetrated in the first place, because putting people in cages doesn't solve anything. And having police doesn't prevent violence, right? It's that truer reckoning of how are we called to live with one another. Yes. And it's like the meta covenant of that we can invite in beautiful ways, not only in congregational life, but in all the ways that in all our relations, right? And all the ways we interact with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a meta. If we have 3 minutes left, we will absolutely do this again. And hopefully we'll be in the context of a commitment to the pieces of education that's needed when the CSAI, when hopefully gets chosen, because what happens is that we will be, the CLF and those who propose this will be responsible for creating the curriculum for the next 3 years. So the VIEW will be a big part of that. And either way, Alison and Keith, we will have you back, because there is so much to talk about. And the thing is about the lives we're living and humanity is everything is a story. Money's a story, how we, right? And we can always lean into a kinder story. We do not need to lean into the most cruel impulses of greed and horror and chaos. We don't. We actually can choose a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that.
And perhaps what I'm arguing in my doctoral thesis is perhaps what it means to be faithful to one's either religious theological tradition or ethical core is that you take on the responsibility of reshaping your tradition, that in such a way that it is meeting the needs of your time and creating more options than it has before, right? Borrowing from biblical concept of traditioning, right? Like that's how we get canons, that's how we get systems, that's how we get traditions. You work on it. The tradition is not dead. We say ours is a living tradition, which means that to be faithful, we all have to work on it. Turn it on its side, look at it, engage our imagination. Robin D.G. Kelley, again, also I'm using one of his books, Black Radical Imagination, where he's talking about how radical imagination is the fuel of social transformation. We can't point to one movement of transformation where folks were not using their imaginations to think of new possibilities. But if our imagination is colonized, if we surrendered our imagination to grind culture, we're never going to change this thing. So I'm excited.
We are going to lean into our imagination. And on that, you have 30 seconds, Keith and Alison. Any last words before we close out?
Real quickly, CLF, you're doing some great work. I don't know if you get feedback from that, but keep doing what you're doing, even though I know it's tough.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Keith. And I'm putting in the chat for those who have been watching. Thank you. What is the word? Link to the Illinois Prison Ministry. Alison, I'll give you the last word and then we will close out. Thank you both so much. Alison.
I'm just gratitude for this time to be together in conversation, and may it continue to bring inspiration as we tap into that radical imagination that's all of our birthright, a collective birthright.
Thank you. And next week we have the two other people running for UUA moderator, Kimberly Quinn Johnson and Bill Young. So join us. Thank you both. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Alison.
Thank you.
Keith,
Thank you so much, y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
you
for joining us. Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now, or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The View.